welcome to Dawn's on Me. I'm Dawn Kirk, and I am here today with Kevin Caffrey. He is with the Northern Colorado Labor Council. I knew I was going to mess up the acronym. I'm really excited to hear what you have going on in the area. So I'd love to have you tell us more about yourself, Kevin.
Thank you, Don, and I appreciate you invite me to your podcast. I know these podcasts are a lot of work and uh, time consuming for you, but I think they serve a great service to get messages out to the people, and this is vital time that we have honest discussions on what's going on. And I think labor is in the forefront right now, just because of the cost of living in Colorado and even the United States. It's so expensive that wages haven't kept up. I was just listening to the Tom Hartman show. He's a guy that does a show on Sirius XM from 10 to 1 our time here in Colorado, and he was just talking about how before Reagan was in president, 50% of Americans were in the middle class, and only 30% of Americans were in poverty. Now it's 30% of Americans are in the middle class, and 50% of Americans are in poverty. And we're talking about working people. And so, how I got involved, I've been a union member for over 50 years. I started out of high school. I got a job with Union Pacific Railroad in the town that I grew up in, North Platte, and it's in Nebraska. It's a major um, center for transportation on the Union Pacific. It's their classification yard, actually the largest in the world, and got a job there. I'm a fourth family member, or fourth generation, I should say, family member to be union and work for Union Pacific. So I'm very proud of that. And I worked for the railroad for over 30 years. And then I was, because it's union, I had a retirement at 60 and 30. Now I had, 40 some years before I could retire because I started so young. But going back to the initial time when I started, what was very appealing to me coming out of high school was the fact that because of the union, at the time it was United Transportation Union. Now we merged with another union. It's called SMART. But because it was union, I was allowed to go to college, and as long as I had C average, and I took something that the railroad considered that would work for them, whether it was education or business. I was allowed to go to school, and they paid for 75% of my tuition and books. Later, they paid for 100%. So I graduated from college, and I never had any debt, and I also had a job. And there's not very many industries that can say that. Most of them that are union apprenticeship type programs, but and you do get college credit from that. So anyway, I have a degree in business and worked for the railroad the whole time. Later, when I retired, I was introduced to the Colorado AFL-CIO, and they have four central labor councils. One's in Fort Collins. We represent the 7 northern counties in Colorado. And the next one over is a Boulder Area Labor Council. They represent 7 counties in the Boulder area. Then there's the Denver Area Labor Federation, which is another CLC, and they represent probably the largest amount of union workers in the Denver area. They have probably 50,000 members. It's large. We're a little bit smaller. We still have 20 different affiliates, and with members and family together, we probably represent 25,000 people in the Northern Colorado labor area. And then there's also a Pueblo Central Labor Council that represents that area and the counties that are close to Pueblo, and then the Colorado Springs labor council that represents counties in southern and western Colorado. So I've been the president of this council for over 20 years, and it's a non-paying job. I'm a volunteer. Our board members are as well. We have trustees that go over, the grant money that we get to operate, so that everything is done and recorded. Um, we represent probably 20 to 25, it varies from time to time, different labor unions, from electricians to teachers, to airline pilots, and the gamut in between. So I don't mean to go on and on and on, but it's a pretty big spectrum of union people that we represent, and some of the newer people that just have joined on are AAUP, which is part of AFT, American Federation of Teachers. They are the university professors at CSU, University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, and also the university professors at Colorado, University of Colorado in Boulder.
Wow.
So.
Honestly, as much as I thought I knew, but you like, there was a 20 things I wrote down because I didn't know. And so that was really helpful. And honestly, I'm blown away by the fact that you guys have so many different representatives, organizations, and then members and families and affiliates. I think that's just phenomenal to think that there's that many people connected already. And then my favorite thing that you said was talking about college. I've got young adult kids, and honestly, it's a whole different world from when I was going and you were going, and so to really think about the potential that is open from doing something that you can connect to your job. I mean, I love your story of how you got started. Mine was similar, only I didn't end up going to college. I put my first husband through and didn't get to go myself. And and I found that, I was learning what I needed to know and applying it, which really mattered. And I would have loved to have done that along with a college program. And so your experience is one that I like am so jealous of. And I love that we could do that for young people, because I think a lot of them are thrown off now. They don't know how to do it, and there's so few ways to get that competitive money. This is a whole new way, and you feel like you really own it because you're using it. You're making that choice, and it's connected, which is super cool. So, hey.
Something else too, Don, that's available to all the young kids, either going to college or otherwise. And I would encourage as many people, young people or whatever age, to go to college, and also check into the apprenticeship programs that are free,
Mhm.
and you work while you are in the apprenticeship program, whether you have a degree or you're working on a degree. So many people that get into these apprenticeship programs, they're 2 and 3 and 4 year programs. They're free. You work while you are in the apprenticeship. Sometimes they meet on weekends. Sometimes they meet after work, a night or two, throughout the month, and help to enhance your skills, whether you're being a plumber, electrician, or whatever. But here's another facet that people don't understand. I was on the Larimer County Workforce Development Board, and I met another gentleman. He was from he was a journeyman pipe fitter that had gone through the program in Denver. He was also a mechanical engineer that at the time in the 90s, he couldn't find a job. His mom talked him into going into the apprenticeship program, which he went through very quickly because of his college education. Got on with U.S. Engineering, which is a mechanical company. He did a little bit of hands-on work, but then they noticed how much potential he had in management, and now he's an executive vice president with U.S. Engineering. But here's the reason: he knows the job from the ground up. He knows it from the administrative side. He knows it from the engineering side. and he knows it from the certified journeyman side. So when he goes there, he sees what's working, what isn't, how to fix it, and he can talk the talk with the people there. So it's not just for people that may find college or higher education just not for them. It's for college educated people to get into this as well. The potential for these things are unbelievable. And these are jobs that are not going away. They're lifetime jobs with good companies, benefits, retirement, and paid education, because it's continuing education. As building trades and all these skilled trades keep evolving with computerized this and that. There's going back to school, and it's all paid for, so it enhances your skills and elevates you at the job. So it's all a win-win for everyone.
I love that. Honestly, my what two of my kids went to trade school, and actually hasn't went. One of them hasn't went yet. And when he said he was going to go to college, I was like, "Why? You're a mechanic." And he said exactly what you just did. He's like, "I can't work on new cars without going to college." And it never even dawned on me that would be a challenge, but his experience has been very similar, and it was really cool for him to get to do something that he enjoyed and to get hands on. For so many um, people, like that is what we're looking for in a job, is something that we can really like sink our teeth into, and you can do that so much faster in some of these jobs. Just recently, I was talking to a woman who does workforce development nonprofit work in Weld, and she told me a stat that I bet you have probably better memorized than I do, but it was something like 80% of the workforce in trades is almost at retirement age or will be within just a few years. And
That's a
then
good
we don't
point.
have a workforce to follow that, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The skilled trades are aging out, and there is a new class of people that are coming in, but not at the rate that they need to be because of the baby boomers and the generation just under baby boomers that are retiring. And so the demand is great, and so are the opportunities,
Yeah.
and that's the exciting part for the young people. The opportunities are just unbelievable,
Mhm.
and so yeah, and I don't want to just dwell just on the trades. I was just reading some literature leading up to this podcast, and wanted to also talk about the fact that higher education, doctors, nurses, and other skilled professionals are looking at unions as well. I just read an article about the University of Maryland Medical Center, where 600 and some doctors and nurses just signed up to be union in Maryland. Also, another big contingent of people just signed up to be union in Fairfax, Virginia. Well, this was in teaching, but people are understanding more, especially professionals, that they need representation. They see that the CEO and the executive people all have contracts, and they're scratching their head at why they don't have a contract, and they need one. It's vital. And like going back to what I initially said about the cost of living, um, companies just don't share it with you unless you can sit down at the table and look across the table at them and be able to explain your situation, from the heart, and they have to see that, and it has to be in a contract situation. In Germany, if there's a company that has 2,000 employees, that allows you right there to have half the seats on the board of directors. That's the way they look at it, because they're very democratic. They've come out of the ashes from the fascism side of it in World War I and II, and the people have taken back the country, and it's they understand they have to have a voice at the workforce, and it comes, whether it's Volkswagen or Mercedes or Bosch or any other company that's German. If it's over 2,000 people, half the board of directors are people that work in that factory, the union members. So I think that's something I hope we can get here in America. I think it's vital.
Yeah, I love that. And having been able to observe a negotiation process that included, an organization versus, being somebody who worked on my own the whole time. My jaw dropped in several spaces, and then throughout the process, I've seen how somebody's got questions, they're struggling, they need this, there's an emergency, and we all have work people that will step up and help us in times like that, but often we're trying to find them ourselves, right? I actually just today was resourcing, asking somebody I know, hey, do you have a resource for this question I have? And then I'm going to have to go research it myself. And I just loved to know that there was people immediately that this is what they do, this is how they go about their day, and the relationship building that comes out of the fact that there is that partnership between the organizations has been one of my favorite parts. It made me a big fan as I got to watch, how robust and deep the conversations can get, but also the idea that there is somebody who is hearing all those voices and balancing it out and helping that one person who might have a thing that they need that isn't really what we all need. It was just, it made me very jealous that I didn't have that in my years. And you mentioned a lot of things that people get stuck negotiating, and a lot of people don't know that you can ask for this or that, and then your whole career at that organization, actually forever, is based off of where you started. So if you didn't know to ask for this, you might never get it. And
That's exactly
just,
right.
I just love that there is somebody who's looking out for other people, and that's their job. Like their thing is knowing the ins and outs, where then I can focus on the thing that I need to do, is really, I think, very beneficial for the system. Obviously, if there's governments that are thinking that way, who've been studying how do we make sure that things stay healthy, it's a good endorsement, I think. That's really helpful.
Yes, and I think the whole union movement, we refer to ourselves as brothers and sisters in the movement, and I've worked with many of union sisters in the railroad industry, transportation industry. My union brothers that were there, and you mentioned something. If you need some help, you need a reference or you I always had that ability to ask someone that had been there longer than me, and it's completely fostered in the union system to help out one another because we're all looked at as family, and I really appreciated that. And you always had somebody to ask. It was not like having a big brother or a family member. I mean, even though they weren't, they acted like that, and we all worked together. And I think the company was enriched by that because we understood our job, we understood the company, we appreciated what they did, and they came to appreciate what we did because of our loyalty. I worked a job where I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Yeah.
and that's a big commitment. Now I'm going to tell you, my wife could tell you that too, because there was many holiday that I got called out on, and I worked out of Wyoming, so I had to drive up to Cheyenne, and it wasn't always something I wanted to do, but I made a good enough living that it was worth doing. And so there's challenges with it, but there are also safeguards and a lot of benefits. And that's why I got involved with the even though I was union the whole time, I got more involved as I retired because it's in me to give back and to help people and let them understand how beneficial the union movement, the labor movement can be for them in every walk of life. It can be. And I have a good retirement and a great life. And I always had through while I was working, but even more so now that I have the time to give back. And I think that is fostered in you as you work in a union environment to give back. I mean, when I talk about the apprenticeship programs that are in Denver, there's over 17 of them. The workers themselves, there's a certain amount of taken out of their paycheck to pay for that apprenticeship program so that the apprentices that are in it do not have to pay for anything. That's how much they believe in it to give back. And so it doesn't cost that new person anything to be in there. They know that that training has to be done, and it's vital. And I think that says a lot for people that are willing to give up part of their pay in order to train the next generation of skilled trade people. So I think it's vital.
I do too. And I was thinking about the other like symbiotic relationships, right? Because there is that ability to really build that strong bond. There's somebody who's got their eye out on that, right? To know like our success is tied. We're not at odds. We are trying to figure out how do we work together on priorities? How do we collaborate? How do we make sure these things happen? And it's cool to see. And so I'm wondering, I mean, obviously you've got a lot going on, lots of people. What kind of things can people do if they want to get involved? I mean, besides applying for some of these jobs, which obviously we need, and they're good ones. What else?
Yes. I would go to if you have a direction, there's a bunch of different directions you could go. If you have a like some type of desire that you want to get into the skilled trades, I would go and look up that, like, let's say you're interested in electrical. I would look up, electrical apprenticeships in Colorado. You'll find them in Denver. The two that I'm the most familiar with, there's more, but the two that are part of our labor council are the IBEW 68, which is the commercial electricians that do all the commercial electrical work for buildings, bigger construction sites, that type of thing. The other one is IBW 111, which they work on like the city of Fort Collins, their electric grid, or Excel that supplies electric and gas, and that they give you the training for that. But then there's the other side of it too. If you're a nurse or a caregiver, matter of fact, my brother just had surgery at UC Health, and we're talking to the nurse there. They just lost their retirement plan, and she was interested in checking into organizing and having a union at UC Health. Um, uh, I was at a rally at one of our senators' office, and I was speaking, and afterwards I got done speaking. A professor from CSU came up to me and talked to me about the organization that they're forming at CSU. It's also the one that's at other universities here in Colorado. It's AAUP, American Association of University Professors, which is a part of AFT, American Federation of Teachers. And he talked to me about the plight at CSU with these adjunct professors that they don't get contracts. They don't know if they're going to have a job from year to year, sometimes from semester to semester. Now, these are people that are training the next generation of professionals, and they have absolutely no safeguards. They have no health care. They have no retirement. they don't even make enough money to actually make a living. It's their love of education and trying to pass that on. And these are people that have masters and PhDs, and they're not being paid a livable wage. And that really struck me. I was like, I wasn't even aware of it. And I've talked to professors at CU's the same thing, and we know that living in Boulder or Fort Collins is not cheap. Living in Colorado isn't cheap. Living in America isn't. And so these people have reached out, and my heart's with them. But they have to. One of the biggest things that we have to overcome in Colorado is the Labor Peace Act, which is another name for right to work for less. And that has to be repealed so that it's easier for working people to be able to organize and be able to get a contract and be able to deal with their employers in a contractual way and not have all the hurdles that the right to work has in it in states. And that the thing that would blanket it, and that's why I hope I when Joe Biden was running that he would be reelected. Since he stepped down, Kamala Harris is running, and I think she understands the vitalness of it's called the PRO Act, which would be a blanket open thing for the whole United States, all 50 states. It would repeal all those right to work. I call them right to work for less, the right to work. And you cannot organize, and if you can, the hurdles are impossible. And so it takes away your freedom as a working person to be represented in the workplace. And I hope more people find out about the PRO Act and something that you probably know about, and this keeps me up at night, is Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's project to turn this country into a third world country. And I'm serious, it would. I mean, we would lose our democracy. We wouldn't vote again. We'd have a dictator, and unions would go away. The National Labor Relations Board would go away. Everything that protects workers would go away.
Yeah.
And it's serious, and it's things, pensions, Social Security, and Medicare would go away, and it's all those things would go away in order to pay for tax cuts for people that don't need them, billionaires. And that's a serious thing. And this election's probably, in my 70 years of being on this earth, probably the most important election for working people, for the democracy of this country, that we get out and vote blue. I mean, it's vital. We have to take back the House, the presidency, the Senate, so that we can get representation for working people, because we don't from the other side. I wish we would. And I have union brothers that are Republican, and they're rethinking their way of voting because of this Project 2025. It's very scary. It's dangerous, and it will wreck this country like we have never seen. And so I hope that people get out and vote this fall. It's vital. And I'm going to say it, vote blue. I mean, that's just it.
Well, you're on the right place. You're in the right place to say that. And honestly, it is like a whole new world thing, right? I think that there is a couple things that are happening in our right now in this moment, right? AI is changing the way that the world
Yep.
works. Um, and it's not going to stop whether we like it or not. And I think that the same is true when we look at some of these politics. Like we do have to vote, and then we still have to figure out how do we stay engaged? How do we get to a place where we are sitting at the table together and talking about how we work together? And this is certainly not this, the project 2025 is definitely the opposite of that, right? It's really about silencing a lot of voices on purpose. Um, and it is concerning. I think that it is a big step away from what knew growing up here with, people who were all over the spectrum who just cared about, maybe a little bit more about whether we do social programs or whether we do this. But, there used to be a lot more common ground in these things. And I think that that's very interesting because I also know that most humans are still mostly just trying to figure out, how am I going to pay for this thing? When am I going to be able to retire? What's it going to look like? Can I get my car fixed? Whatever it is. And that's true for the average person. And these politics have lately just went really sideways in a way that I think is shocking, and overwhelming. And so I am glad you brought it up, because it does have such a big component of stripping away employment rights. And I'm also really grateful to know that there are organizations who are already thinking ahead around, what do we need to do. You mentioned doing advocacy as well. And I think that that's another big benefit, is just, your bargaining isn't just the partnership at the organization. It's having somebody who says, these are some things that are happening in the industry. These are the things that are happening in employment rights. A lot of things that are better for all of us exist because of the work that you've done, and people in organizations have done over the years, to say, this is what we all need. And so you've been fighting for us whether we were members or not, and I appreciate that. And you've been doing it for quite a while, which is even more impressive. I love that you took this into your next phase and carried it forward. It means a lot. Um, is there any other thing that you'd like to impart on anyone, especially knowing that we got a busy couple months coming up?
I would. My wife and I have been precinct committee people for the Larimer County Dems. We've been involved with the county party for probably over 30 years. We've been Senate District 14 uh, uh, chair people. We've been House District 53 chair people. Right now, we're redistrict, so I'm. I think they're called POs now, precinct organizers. I am, and my wife is as well in our precinct, and we're now in House District 52, which is Kathy Kipp, and our representative that will be running is Yara, and she's a big supporter of labor. I hope people get out. Sarah McKean in House District 50 is running in Loveland. I hope people get out and support her. We've got Andy Basenicker, who's in House District 53, a wonderful representative and a good labor person. Kathy Kipp is making the step up to Senate District 14 from being in House District 52. I think she'll be fantastic. She was also a school board member. So we've been involved in the politics and the labor side of it. And I think as a citizen, if you're not informed. I would tell people to watch as much news, read the paper, subscribe to progressive magazines. I take the Progressive Populist. I take the Nation. I get a union publication. It's called The Letter Label, that has fantastic articles in it. And if you're not involved, you're not aware. And there's so many things coming at us with the right wing think tanks that are trying to take our democracy and our country away from us. If we're not informed, we won't know what they're taking away, and it's a little bit troubling finding out all those things. But if you're not aware, you're not a good citizen, and you need to stay involved. And I want to thank you, Don, for the great work that you're doing here. This is a fantastic effort that you're doing. It's vital, and people need to know it. And all the different people that you talk to and the perspectives that you bring out are fantastic. It's helped educating, our area, and I hope it goes out even further because it is such a great thing. And I want to thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
I'm really glad that you came. And I will say that another piece of this, because I've talked to a lot of people who've gotten overwhelmed, and there is so much going on that it can be heartbreaking and tough to keep it up, right? We're a choir, and so we all need to make sure that we're doing our a little bit. And what I love about local politics is that these are real people that you can actually know, which is super great. It's not some everybody you see on TV. It's real people. They need real help talking to real neighbors, as you've done as a volunteer. And for me, it was the single, I honestly, I think this is no lie, getting involved and finding ways I could do something, even just a little bit. I think that's what saved my life. There were some tough years that we've been through, and there were days that I didn't know what to do. My mental health was a wreck. I couldn't keep it together. I felt helpless and hopeless, and I was very well informed, but that was overwhelming, right? And to be able to get involved, I could see where something was real, and it was good people that I saw. And when I have a concern, I can call somebody and say, help me with this. Tell me what's going on. Here's what I need you to know. That feels so much better than being overwhelmed by all this. And the
Yeah.
reality is that all these big things are actually just a bunch of little things, right? It's a bunch of people having those same conversations, and so it's not hard to get involved either. And I love that. And we together have a collective understanding, right? You're paying attention to things that I didn't know about, and vice versa, hopefully. And that helps too, because we're sharing information and you got your eye on something, and that helps. And so thank you for keeping your eye on so many things, and really supporting so many people in our community. That's a huge ripple effect in what that does for employers and our economy. And we are in a great place. We have great things happening here in Northern Colorado. Clearly, you've had a lot to do with that and all the people that you work with. And so I'm glad that you came on. I feel so much smarter than I was when we started. And I'm hoping you can come back, because I bet that there is more that we could talk about at some other point. So hopefully that'll happen sometime soon.
I really appreciate it because I could get into healthcare as well.
Yes, please. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we'll schedule extra time for that one, because I
Okay.
have a lot to learn. So can't
Fantastic.
wait for that. Thank you so much,
Excellent.
Kevin. Thanks to
Okay.
everybody.
Don, you're the greatest. Thank you. And thanks for this great service.
Thanks. Thanks to everybody who's listening. I hope that you get out and get involved and do your voting. And
There you
we'll see you
go.
next time. Take care.
Thank you, Don.
Paid for by the Larimer County Democratic Party. 2001 South Shield Street, Unit B3. Fort Collins, Colorado, 80526. 970-689-6391. Not authorized by any candidate or any candidate's committee. Andrew Yates, registered agent.